Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and I had a kind of maybe like interesting idea for a video just because I feel like at least in wrestling a lot of people are very WWE centric, and then you got AEW, you got TNA, and then we have a beautiful world of Japanese wrestling, and there's a lot going over there. And the problem is with a lot of people, it's just like you don't like, it's like watching a movie and then coming at the like three-fourths in, you're kind of like, I don't know any of these characters and I don't know who belongs to who. So I figured maybe I'll do some little video series here, kind of run down of each faction that's there, because Stardom is just a very beautiful wrestling like promotion that's filled with these really cool factions, and pretty much everybody falls under a faction, which kind of really sets up a lot of the team dynamic. And I think it really just helps with the overall fighting, because people like really know when you do like especially tag matches what you're dealing with, because you're tagging with these people quite a bit, or trioing, or just in general out there helping each other. So I figured I'd start with God's Eye here. It's like an interesting faction, at least to me, because it's like a newer one to a certain extent. It's only like 2 years old. It's actually coming on its third year of being around here, because it's 2002, March 26th. The leader is obviously Sayuri. Why did I just immediately butcher her name? It all stemmed from, she used to be part of a bigger faction. I guess like bigger at the time. It was pretty massive with who was in it, but it was Donna Del Mondo, which was Julia's faction, who's now in WWE, and she wanted to kind of get out of Julia's, shadow to a certain extent, and start her own faction. And this is where the beautiful God's Eye was created. Honestly, out of all the factions, this one is one of those factions that I don't really feel gets a lot of like limelight, because of it's kind of ever changing to a certain extent right now, because like everybody in it is like obviously kind of on the newer side. And also Amy, who honestly probably would be the second biggest name here, at least in some circles, is currently hurt with a ACL tear. So that is kind of rough. And there's been other people that have been in the faction that left that was really massive. Like they had Murray, who's now in Marigold. I mean, she was a really big addition to that faction. And when she left for Marigold, that left a big hole. Konami was also in it, who left for Hate, which is Hate, I think might be my favorite faction. So like those are former members that was, pretty big, especially because Murray was like the third ever member. Because it was basically just Sayuri and Amy as the first two in it, and then we had Murray, we had Konami a little bit later, we had Inbada, which is the older sister of the two. If you haven't seen these sisters wrestle, they're amazing also. So it's kind of one of those things where like they got a little bit of some younger people, because I think she's 20ish and she started in 2023, so she was much like very like brand new. And then we had a few of our other members until we get to our newest member right here, who doesn't even have a Wikipedia page at the moment. Like you already know, you're kind of new. I don't even think she has a cage match page, if I'm not mistaken. She might have that. And then obviously in these factions, there's always sub factions with like having tag teams and stuff. And I always think that's kind of like a really interesting thing, that like each one of these people have combinations that work together. Like even Tsuyuri has a tag team with Mbata. She has a tag team with Saka. Like it's kind of interesting. Hina has a tag team with Mbata. Amy with Lady C. So like it's kind of interesting. And they've had some former ones, obviously, with people that are not here anymore. So there's a lot that goes on from there. And obviously, I feel like out of most of the factions, this is one of those factions that have not as many racked up wins compared to anything. They have two tag team title wins. They have obviously a Wonder of Stardom and a World of Stardom champion, which was Suryui and then Murray, respectively. And then they've had, some high speed championships. They had the Artist of Stardom one time, which is their trios championship. So it's like they've had some different stuff, and they've had like the Future of Stardom, which is like their like young one, and they even have the Cinderella championship winner, which was Murray, who won it in 2002 and 2003. So like they had a lot of like accolades, but when you look at it compared to all the other factions, they feel like one of the factions that don't have it as much. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of faction work inside of Stardom, but like that's kind of a crazy thing. And I feel like their faction definitely needs some extra blood in it. Obviously, it feels like one of those things with Stardom that's like a little bit harder because they don't always just like randomly get a giant big name from a different promotion because they are the big name promotion in Japan and they're losing talent to Marigold. So like they're not going to probably turn anybody from Marigold, but I do definitely feel like there needs to be somebody out there that they bring in. I honestly I think a good fit would be a B Priestley, which is Blair Davenport from WWE. She's already had time in Stardom, and she was part of Queen's Quest, which was an old faction that was. If you're looking at the creme de la creme of factions, I always feel like looking at Queen's Quest and who they had in it with like Io Shirai and Utami, like they had some really good people in there. So I feel like they could definitely use like a an extra faction member here. But yeah, I feel like these little faction videos will be a little loosey goosey, just kind of give you some information. I'm not sure what all to put in it, because not a lot of people talk about Stardom, especially like the factions themselves. Like there's people out there that's like, oh yeah, this is blank, and they know certain people, but it's such an important lifeblood to Stardom is to understand the factions. Like you'll understand certain matches and who's who and like that because they're always tagging together and you see them even in they have like at the start of the year like faction wars and stuff, which is just really cool. Like to imagine if you put this like copy and paste into WWE, the factions would be insanely big or there'd be an insane amount of them, but there would be so much stuff that they would have because you think tag teams are hard to go or even trios. These are like 6 to 8 women that all have to have like a common theme or have like something that kind of puts them together. Honestly, God's Eye is another one that doesn't really feel like it has like that like something that you can kind of look at everybody in there and be like, this makes sense. I want like all of these women are, a certain dress type or, they wear some type of uniform or anything. I definitely think like something like that would be really cool. Like even like a red and white and then let's have everybody kind of wear red and white, I think would be a little bit better. I just like I feel like there's something missing, and that's why I wanted to start with God's Eye because it's like they're a good opening faction to kind of learn because it's not like a ton of information thrown at you compared to some of the other ones. And like looking at this, you're like, oh, okay, well this is pretty simple to learn. And honestly, that's the cool thing about Stardom. If you actually sit there and kind of look and devour some of the content that they have, you see just like how cool and normal it is that like these factions exist and they just make this organization really crazy because there is no other wrestling organization out there that I've ever experienced that's like this where it's set up into all of these factions separately working to get like working against each other but in a way that like it looks good that you could be they have like sub stuff coming from it because maybe somebody helps another person from a different faction and like they go after each other in a certain ways or going after a certain title and then it could bring on other stuff and it's like there's just so much random stuff that comes from it, but I like it a lot. But yeah, this has been God's Eye, and if you like this thing, I was thinking maybe if we could get like 10 likes on it, I'll come up with the next one. And if you guys are enjoying it, just put it in the comments below so I know you guys are excited to see more. And I would love to finish out all the factions and maybe even do some of the older factions because it's a lot of fun. Until next time, this has been Japan. Bye, guys.